Chapter 1. The Body on the Tracks. I hadn't heard Mason Briggs' name in nearly a decade. Not since the silent farewell we all skipped, the one held behind closed doors with flags, salutes, and lies. But now he was front and center again, plastered across a police report out of Tacoma, Washington. His body had been found on the tracks, bones shattered like someone had tried to make a point. The news article called it suicide. I didn't believe that for a second. Mason wasn't the kind of man who laid down for anything, let alone a train. He was a fighter, one of us. There were 5 of us back then, 5 men who walked into a place we weren't supposed to be, saw something we weren't supposed to see, and came back with blood on our hands and silence in our throats. We made a pact in the dust and heat of Yemen. Whatever happened on Operation Sand Velvet died with us. No questions, no confessions, no apologies. We were the iron hand, forged in shadows. But someone was breaking fingers. I booked a one-way flight before the news could finish looping through my brain. Briggs was the first. That much I knew. What I didn't know yet was whether I'd be the last. Chapter 2. The Tattoo Code. Mason's apartment was a ghost shell. Clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that smelled like bleach and caution, like someone was afraid of what might be left behind. They scrubbed it hard, but not smart. In the bathroom mirror, I spotted it. A fresh tattoo behind his ear, barely healed, not even fully scabbed. It wasn't for style. It was code, old school, SEAL stuff. And it was meant for me. The numbers etched in ink were latitude and longitude. A name followed, Rook. And underneath that, a date, 1 week from now. Coordinates, aliases, timing. It was our language, carved into skin instead of stone. Whoever did this to Briggs didn't know the code, but he'd left it anyway. The last act of a man who knew he was going to die but wasn't ready to be forgotten. I ran the coordinates. An old barn outside Raton, New Mexico. Desert country, middle of nowhere. A good place to bury secrets, or dig them up. The name Rook chilled me. That was Logan's call sign, the youngest in our crew. Green at the time, but steady. If Briggs had gone through the trouble to mark his body for me to find, it meant one thing. Logan was next. Chapter 3. The Oath Unkept. Yemen. Operation Sand Velvet. It was supposed to be a simple kill capture, off the books. The target was an alleged rogue CIA asset leaking drone intel to insurgents. Intel said he'd already cost American lives. We were told he was scum. We were told it was justice. We were lied to. The man we killed was a whistleblower, the kind of man who believed in law more than orders. He had evidence, documents, hard drives, footage. We were sent not to stop a traitor, but to silence the truth. And we did. We wiped it clean, burned it all, and reported success. No witnesses, no doubt, just bodies and sand. When we got back to the safe house, none of us spoke for hours. Mason finally broke the silence. He said, "We die with this." And we all agreed. We made an oath, 5 hands, one truth buried forever. But someone had cracked. I didn't know who. Maybe Briggs, maybe Rook. But someone had whispered the wrong thing to the wrong ears. And now the price of that whisper was being paid in blood. Chapter 4. The Barn in Raton. The barn looked like it had been abandoned for 50 years, sun-bleached siding, rusted-out hinges, and wind howling through every cracked board like it had something to say. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew I was being watched. Not by ghosts, but by someone with a trigger finger. The interior was empty, save for a folding table covered in dust, and a single sat phone wrapped in an old burlap sack. The second I crossed the threshold, a light flicked on overhead, like it had been wired to a motion sensor, and then the phone rang. I picked it up. "Reeve," I said, my voice low. On the other end, a voice I hadn't heard since Djibouti. "Jack," the man said, "you're late." "Rook?" I asked. There was a pause. "Not anymore," he replied. Call me Logan. They know you're here. If you came to warn me, you should have done it yesterday." Then the line went dead. The next thing I heard was the unmistakable stutter of suppressed rifle fire outside. The dirt cracked like popcorn under the hail of bullets. I dropped the phone and dove behind a support beam just as rounds punched holes through the barn wall. Dust exploded in every direction. Someone wanted us both dead. Chapter 5. Fire on the Horizon. The bastards were sloppy. Contractors, not professionals. Maybe they'd been hired in a rush. Maybe they were underestimating who they were up against. Either way, they paid for it. I ghosted out the back, circled wide, and took the high ground. One of them was watching the front like a rookie, rifle down, posture lazy. I snapped his neck in silence. The second went down with a knife in the ribs before he could key his comms. The third ran, which was smart. I let him go. Logan, Rook, was inside, bleeding from a shallow wound along his ribs. It looked worse than it was, but the pain had already slowed him. He handed me a notebook wrapped in duct tape. The pages were dog-eared, covered in scribbles and names. Most of it made no sense, except one section marked in red ink. Sand Velvet, Collapse. There were dates, locations, crossed-out names. 3 of us were left now. Briggs was dead. Rook was fading. That left Gator and me. And next to my name in Logan's book was a single word written in all caps: Convergence. And underneath it, likely target. Chapter 6. Gator's Warning. Tampa was boiling, not from the weather, but from memories. I hadn't seen Gator, real name Zane Fields, since he walked away from JSOC with a dishonorable discharge and a smirk. He was running airboat tours now for half-drunk tourists and keeping tabs on the black market with the other half of his time. When I found him at a waterfront bar that smelled like bait and sweat, he didn't even blink. "I figured you'd show," he said, tossing me a beer. "Briggs is dead, ain't he?" I nodded. Rook, too. Took a round in New Mexico. Didn't make it. He downed the beer like water and stared out at the bay. "They came for me 3 nights ago," he said. 2 guys in suits. Didn't say a word, just opened fire. I sent one to the morgue. Told the other to spread the message. Zane Fields doesn't go quietly. I leaned in. "Did you get a name?" He didn't speak for a long time. Then he exhaled, slow and steady, like he was blowing the dust off a memory. "Not a name. A call sign." He looked at me dead in the eyes. "Specter." The blood drained from my face. I hadn't heard that name in years. Specter wasn't a man. It was a phantom tasking protocol, a shadow operation used when the government needed something done without fingerprints. If Specter was active again, then we weren't just targets. We were liabilities. Chapter 7. Sand Velvet Files. We holed up in a safe house outside Clearwater. Cheap motel, bad coffee, good cover. Gator handed me a flash drive from his personal stash. "Rook sent me this months ago," he said. "Didn't open it. Figured if I did, I'd be dead within the week." I plugged it into a burner laptop. The contents were encrypted, but Rook left a passphrase hidden in a corrupted image file. Old school. Once I decrypted the core archive, the screen filled with mission logs, tactical maps, and digital breadcrumbs. The file directory was labeled SV-1212-Class 4, the internal reference for Operation Sand Velvet. The more I read, the worse it got. One report confirmed what we already knew. Our target hadn't been rogue. He was whistleblowing drone footage of civilian casualties. The strikes we were told to clean up weren't failures. They were intentional tests. Collateral damage was the point. But the deeper we dug, the more dangerous it became. There were classified routing orders that led all the way to a defense contractor known only as Cimmerian Edge, a firm tied to black budgets and zero oversight. The ops weren't authorized through JSOC or CIA. They were Specter-controlled. Then I found the words that stopped me cold. Specter Protocol, status, active, known units, iron hand, compromised, recommended action, full erasure. They weren't just tracking us, they were greenlit to eliminate us. Chapter 8. The Tactical Trap. You don't survive long in this world by playing defense. We decided to go on the offensive. Gator still had contacts in Panama. One of them a smuggler named De La Cruz, who owed him both cash and blood. We crafted a fake intel package labeled Sand Velvet, full package, and planted it on a known Specter surveillance drop node. The metadata was clean. The bait was set. Within 48 hours, we were being tailed through Ybor City by a white Escalade with tinted windows and surveillance-grade equipment. They weren't subtle. That was their first mistake. We took them out on a back street behind an old cigar warehouse. Gator boxed them in while I breached from the rear. The passenger tried to pull steel. He didn't get far. I dragged the driver into a loading dock and slammed his head against the brick until he stopped smiling. "Who signs your paychecks?" I asked. He spit blood, then grinned. "You think this is about what you did?" he said. "You think it's about Yemen? This isn't cleanup. This is calibration." "What does that mean?" He laughed, even with a broken tooth. "You're just a loose end from a test run. The real program's coming. You're not the mission, Reeve. You're the warm-up." I didn't get a name out of him, but I got something better, a flash drive tucked inside his boot, labeled SV Origin EXE. Chapter 9. The Safe House, Video. Back at the motel, I cracked the flash drive open like a rotten egg. Inside, there were surveillance files, time-stamped, compressed, geotagged. But one of them, it froze me. It was video from a hospital security cam. The quality was grainy, but the face was unmistakable. Natalie Cruz. She was unconscious, tubes in her arms, monitors lit up beside her. She was alive, but sedated. The timestamp was from 3 days ago. That made no sense. Natalie was supposed to be in hiding. After the widow's directive, she disappeared off the grid. We had made sure of it. No phones, no paper trail, no digital footprint. She was a ghost, just like I taught her to be. Gator leaned over my shoulder. "I thought you said she was gone." "I did," I whispered. "She was." My mind raced. If they had Natalie, then this went beyond Sand Velvet. This wasn't about one buried mission anymore. It was about me, every op I ever touched, every person I ever trusted. They weren't erasing an operation. They were erasing my past. Chapter 10. Oathbreaker. Rook, Logan, died that night. A pulmonary embolism, the doctors said. A clot from the wound he took in Raton. Silent, sudden, just like Specter would have wanted. No final shootout, no fiery end. Just one less voice left to speak the truth. They didn't have to kill him in combat. The stress did the work for them. I got the voicemail an hour later. His voice was weak, strained, the kind of tired that goes deeper than the body. "I'm sorry, Jack," he said. "I thought if I came clean, if I told someone what we saw, I thought it would fix things, bring justice. All it did was wake up Specter." He coughed, then paused. "You have to stop them. Burn it all down if you have to. Finish what we started. Keep the oath, even if I didn't." That line hit me like a sledgehammer. Keep the oath, even if I didn't. The irony stung worse than the guilt. He wasn't confessing because he was weak. He was confessing because he still believed the system could be redeemed. But I knew better. The system wasn't broken. It was designed this way. Chapter 11. Gator's Last Stand. Gator didn't say much after we buried Rook's notebook in a coffee can behind the motel. He just stared off into the swamp like it might swallow the world whole. But I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't going to run. He never had. He looked at me over his beer. "If I disappear, make sure they don't write me off as some PTSD burnout." I raised an eyebrow. "Planning something stupid?" "Not stupid," he said. "Loud." That night, he hit one of Specter's ghost sites in Homestead, Florida. A drone relay station camouflaged as an agricultural data hub. He slipped in, downloaded hard evidence of operation routing logs, and blew the place sky high with a pair of repurposed RPGs from his Panama contact. He took a round in the leg during exfil but got out. Barely. I found him bleeding in the back of his truck, half-conscious and grinning. "Got you a parting gift," he groaned, tossing me a charred thumb drive. "They'll come hard now. Hope you got a plan." I did, but it wasn't pretty. Chapter 12. Shadowbox. I went dark for 2 weeks. Burned every ID, dumped every device. Moved between safe houses like a hunted animal. And still I felt their breath on my neck. Whoever was behind Specter wasn't just thorough, they were personal. They weren't just cleaning the file, they were cleaning me. I tapped an old contact in Langley, call sign Minx, a retired analyst with enough paranoia to build a bunker in the mountains. She owed me for something in Kyrgyzstan, and I was finally cashing in. When I showed her the thumb drive, she went pale. "This is command-level routing," she said. "Level 6 Specter. You weren't supposed to have this." I leaned in. "Then tell me who is." She hesitated, then whispered the name like it was poison. "Colfax." The name rattled through my memory like a suppressed shot in a steel hallway. General Alec Colfax, once head of JSOC, now a civilian contractor with a defense firm buried so deep in Pentagon corridors that even their org charts were redacted. He was the architect of Sand Velvet. And he'd just become my next target. Chapter 13. A Name in Blood. Colfax. The name felt like broken glass in my mouth. He'd been untouchable for years, one of those men who never set foot on a battlefield but had maps painted in blood. I remembered his face from a mission brief in 2009, the guy who wore medals like they were poker chips, smiled like he already owned your next move. After retirement, he slipped behind the walls of Belmore Strategic Solutions, a black-budget shell company contracting advisory services to the DoD. Translation, they did the government's dirty work with no oversight and even less humanity. Belmore was more Specter than the Specter protocol itself. Minx tapped into one of their satellite conference calls. We watched a silent feed of Colfax sipping coffee in a glass-walled war room. He spoke like a CEO, but his words were tactical venom. "Project Remora is online. Old elements of Iron Hand are destabilizing. Terminations to continue until operational control is re-established." That was it. No panic, no doubt, just policy. We weren't people to him. We were loose elements. Chapter 14. The List. The thumb drive Gator recovered contained more than comms logs. It had a personnel manifest, encrypted, but Minx cracked it in under an hour. It was a list, names, dozens of them. Most were aliases, but I recognized a few from our training days, guys who were recruited into Iron Hand but never activated. Others were ghost assets. Former Tier 1 operators, contract field officers, and intelligence couriers from Yemen, Somalia, and Eastern Europe. And one name stood out, buried deep in the metadata, almost like it wasn't meant to be seen. Reeve Jack, potential catalyst monitor termination required. I stared at the screen. Monitor termination. They weren't just hunting me. They were tracking how I would respond, testing the perimeter of their own cleanup protocol. Gator saw it too. "You're not just on their list, man," he muttered. "You're the final checkpoint. Once you go down, it's all buried for good." I'd spent my life taking orders, but now the only directive I had was clear: burn it all down. Chapter 15. Return to Ash. We made our move just before dawn. Colfax was scheduled to attend a closed-door debrief at Belmore's subterranean campus in Northern Virginia, formerly a data center now reclassified as a mission continuity node. We geared up with suppressed hardware, EMP grenades, and burner comms. No digital trace, just old-school tactics, the way we used to do it. Gator handled perimeter while I breached the maintenance corridor. The underground facility smelled like ozone and polished concrete. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I made my way to the glass conference room we'd seen in the satellite feed. Colfax was there, surrounded by handlers and executives, unarmed, arrogant. I raised my weapon, but he didn't flinch. "Reeve," he said calmly. "It's not personal." "You killed my team," I said. He chuckled. "They were liabilities. You all knew what Sand Velvet was. You agreed to bury it, but some of you couldn't keep your oath." He leaned forward. "You broke it too, Jack. Showing up here proves that." That's when I realized he wanted me here. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a trap. Chapter 18. Legacy Code. In a safe house tucked behind a mechanic's garage in Kentucky, I uploaded the files to 6 independent journalism networks, 2 international watchdog groups, and 1 particularly angry ex-NSA whistleblower living in Argentina. Within hours, the first story broke. Leaked documents reveal private U.S. military firm testing covert elimination protocols. Within days, Belmore's stock crashed. Within a week, Senate hearings were called. Colfax was named in absentia. They wouldn't find him. Not easily. Men like him don't run, they just change names and crawl into new shadows. But we made him radioactive. I watched Gator toss a match into the last burner phone we used. Flames danced in the cold air. "You think this ends it?" he asked. I shook my head. No. But it ends their silence. We both knew the truth. Specter wasn't dead. But now the world could see its face, and as long as I had breath, I'd make sure it never disappeared again. Chapter 19. Farewell to Gator. The heat in Kentucky didn't come from the sun. It came from the trail we were leaving behind. Belmore's collapse had triggered a global reaction. Every name tied to Specter was either in hiding, under arrest, or dead. Some jumped before the noose could tighten. Others weren't given the choice. Gator knew what was coming. The world might have been paying attention now, but that didn't mean it was safe. He wasn't built for headlines or martyrdom. He was built for action, and his kind didn't retire. We sat on the hood of a stolen SUV as dusk settled over the hills. He cracked a beer and passed it to me. "Hell of a run," he said. "You saved lives," I told him. "You kept the oath." He didn't answer right away, just stared at the tree line like something was whispering from the dark. "When they come for me," he finally said, "don't avenge me. Just make sure the next guy doesn't have to go through what we did." The next morning, he was gone. No note, no prints, just his dog tags on the seat. He didn't want a grave. He wanted to vanish, like all good soldiers do. Chapter 20. Hunter's Code. I went north after that, deep into the Adirondacks, where GPS signals fade and cell towers don't dare to reach. Off-grid, no trackers, no trail. But I didn't stop working. Specter wasn't dead, not really. It would resurface somewhere else, under a new name, with new funding. These programs always do, because the appetite for control, the lust for clean wars and silent kills, never dies. It just adapts. That's why I built the MAM, a neural log of every dark contract, every shell company, every thread I could pull. I uploaded it to a remote AI server. It learns, it watches, and when a familiar pattern reemerges, I get a ping. I've become the thing they tried to erase, a remnant, a virus in their system. They called me the catalyst. They were right. But I'm not waiting to be hunted anymore. Now I'm the one pulling the trigger. Epilogue. The Whisper File. Somewhere in a boardroom in Zurich, a man in a $1,000 suit opens an encrypted file. Project Whisper, Level 7, initiated, recommended oversight agent, unknown status, counter-catalyst in progress. Note, Reeve, public unstable, remove upon contact. As the man reads, he doesn't notice the silent figure watching from a nearby rooftop. Gloved hands, a suppressed rifle, a familiar face. Still breathing. The screen goes black. My voice closes the scene. They tried to control the silence, but they forgot one thing. Silence remembers everything.